Welcome to this week's edition of the Casual Shooters Podcast, your premier podcast for the casual shooter. This week you have me, Dave, your host, and that's it. Chris and Leo were too intimidated by our guest's masculine good looks to appear on the same podcast as them. Before we get started, I just want to mention, go ahead and visit our website. We do have another sponsor, Gun Butter, in addition to Laser App and Hoist. You can see all the discounts right on the main page of the website. But I also added a sponsor tab, and you can also get links to all of our guests there as well. Different ways to find them. So this week, our guest comes by way of Hawaii, though I'm not sure he may be living there currently. He's a private investigator that got his start in the 1980s. Hasn't aged a day since then. Hopefully I learned his secret of aging today. I may not share it, though. Everyone give a warm round of applause for Isaac Thomas Magnum P.I. Lockwood. How you doing, Isaac?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah. Crowd goes crazy. Dude, you have got the most magnificent Magnum P.I. mustache in all of shooting.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been a couple years in the making.
Yeah, okay. I like it, though. It's awesome. We need to get you in like a Hawaiian shirt. You know, it would be perfect.
Right. Yeah, I already wear the fancy sunglasses. Actually, I don't have them. They're somewhere in my bag.
Well, that is actually one of my questions for you. So yeah. I have no idea where you found them. But so why don't you take a minute and go ahead and introduce yourself?
Isaac Lockwood. So I've been, as far as shooting goes, I've always liked guns. Obviously, really didn't know about competition stuff until 2017. Basically started watching YouTube, had a lot of time off work, going through some medical stuff with one of my kids, and so you're just at home just cruising YouTube and found Hot Shots. I don't know if everybody's seen that, but it's awesome. It's basically USPSA based for the most part, 3-gun. It's got Jerry Mitchellek, Clint Upchurch on the 3-gun side. I can't remember the guy that did the, they call it a guy that shoot bow. I think he just did trick shots more than anything. And another guy that did shotgun stuff, trick shots. And then, of course, Max Michelle, who turned in kind of, it was Casey Eusebio, and then Max Michelle kind of took over on that show. And it was just, it was really cool to watch. And I don't know. Of course, I think like all guys, I just thought, they can't be aiming. You can't shoot that fast and see what you're shooting at. I believe that. And anyways, so I went out to my local range. They actually had a Tuesday night steal and did USPSA. But I thought, I'm never going to wear that stupid race gear. I was like, no way. But
and look at you now.
Yeah. Started shooting the Tuesday night steal. And when the 50 and 60-year-old ladies were beating me, I was just like, hey, maybe I'm not Rambo. Maybe I'm not quite as good as I thought I was. Going to the range, shooting a mag, and then changing guns and shooting a mag, and then thinking, wow, I just shot a lot of ammo, you know. But yeah, I quickly learned, latched onto it, got addicted. I think like we all do. You either get addicted or you quit, from what I found.
Right.
It either turns you onto it and you can't get enough of it, or you immediately just like your ego gets too big, is what I think for guys. They just can't come back and keep getting beat by, you know, kids and grandmas and along with everybody else.
I mean, if that was the case, 80% of us would have quit because of the Williams sisters.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Young girls beating the tar out of everybody.
Absolutely. I know. I hate that was one of my goals. That's always a goal when I'm at a match where they're at, is I can't. I mean, it's inevitable now. I mean, with Justine with the PCC, I think.
Oh yeah.
I always get them mixed up. Justine Jalise. I'm pretty sure it's Justine shoots the PCC and Jalise shoots single stack. But yeah, so I can't beat her with that PCC, but very few can. So it is what it is. But before that, when she was shooting a pistol, I was just like, I can't. At least I think she was, when I first shot not against her. We were in different divisions, but she was at the same match, and that was the goal. I was like, I can't let. I think she was 16 or 17. I don't know. Like, you know, I was decent, but I mean, each year's been a progression for me. But yeah, that was one of the goals in the back of my head that I was like, man. But I think she still got me.
Well, and last year, I know I'm going to butcher her last name, Morgan Leonhardt.
Yeah.
You know, women's national champion at what, 14?
Yeah.
She definitely kicked my butt. So
yeah, I was there last year. I didn't get to see her shoot, but I certainly saw that she won, and it was it was kind of a good moment seeing her accept her award. You know, I think we all kind of like she stole all our hearts up there on stage, crying. You know, a little. She was emotional, but she got us all there.
Exactly.
We were all happy for her.
All right. I don't know if you've heard any of our episodes, but we start off with 5 personal questions to get to know.
You know what? I plan to. I've been busy. I turned one on. I've got a TV in my garage, and I turned one on today during my workout, and it was Bob Bogle, and so I heard some of it, but I was working out before I had to go and take care of some errands, so I saw a little bit of stuff. But,
yeah, he's an above average shooter.
Yeah, he's pretty good. I love to train with him. You know, he's one of those guys that I think just no matter who you are, you're going to learn from him, no matter how good you are. Just there's a lot of guys out there like that. No matter how good you are, whether you're even better than them, shooting wise, you're still going to learn so much. But yeah, I definitely like. I will say this, just to throw it back to that episode, because people that are interested should watch it. He was able to explain. It was more the timing. Some people we're just jumping right into mechanics.
That's okay. I like it. That's good.
I'm a student of it, you know, and that's kind of what draws me, because there's always something you can do better. But he was able to really explain something that I couldn't quite put my finger on until I heard him say that today. So it was really interesting. So I'll bring it up. Is you can teach mechanics, or you can have the perfect mechanics, but there's something to be said for a natural ability to feel your gun and the timing and the balance of it, and be able to like what happens a lot of times. I know it looks like I flinch if I run out of ammo or something, right? Or it doesn't go bang, and I'll push forward and it looks like a flinch, but all you're doing is kind of like what he said, is you're timing the gun. So at the instant you know where that shot's going to break, you're already applying that pressure. He didn't go into it like this, but I was able to take that to understand what I'm doing and why. I was like, what the heck, I'm flinching, but I know I'm not flinching because obviously I'm hitting what I'm aiming at. So that was a good explanation how he described that.
Yeah, more like an anticipation, but you've got the timing down to where that anticipation is at the exact moment of ignition.
Yes, so, and it doesn't always, obviously, if it was always perfect, then you wouldn't miss as much. But
well,
so it's not always perfect.
And you wouldn't be human if you were always perfect.
Right, but some people are definitely just have that, and it's not something you can teach. It's something that you've got to either develop through just more rounds downrange, more live fire, or you're just naturally good at that.
Yeah. All right.
Great episode there from what I could hear before I had to leave.
Okay. Well, good. You get more to listen to.
Yep.
Question number 1. What's your favorite movie?
Oh gosh. Actually, that's not too hard. So it's The Princess Bride. It's one. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah. You're not the first one to say that.
Oh, really?
That's actually
it's one of those
Leo,
you can just watch over and over. Yeah, it's just one of those that you can watch over and over, and it just, whether you know every line or not, it's still funny. It's got everything really.
All right, this one might be a little tougher because this one seems to fall into one of two camps. Either you read or you don't read. And what's your favorite book?
Yeah, I don't read a whole lot. I read for my job because I have to. I can't say I have a favorite book, just because reading has never been my thing, to be honest.
Okay, all right.
Right now I'm just reading How to Survive Law Enforcement.
Okay.
It's just
Yeah,
good
that's
advice for any.
yeah. I'm a firefighter, and I don't envy you and your job right now.
It's I just changed agencies 2 months ago, and obviously it was it's such a it was such a good move. I'm very fortunate to be there, and it's kind of been an exact opposite of what I came from in a good way. And now I'm just like I'm having fun again, and it has law enforcement. It just sucks because I'm in California, and
Mm,
really the criminals are protected, as we all know, and it's tough. So you can't get discouraged. You got to do your job and just do the best that you can do good work, and that's what this agency promotes. So regardless whether they're going to be out before in 2 hours after you book them, you're going to take 4 hours for the report or whatever you got to do by the end of it. Doesn't matter. You just keep doing your job, do your best, and it comes down to leadership. It's such a big thing in law enforcement, regardless of where you're at. So it can either make or break an agency, or all the way down. It's been a good thing.
okay. Now, one of our co-hosts is big into superheroes. So this is his question: who is your favorite superhero?
Well, it used to be Spider-Man growing up. I just always watched the
Okay.
Saturday morning cartoons, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But I always had a thing for Superman too. And now that I'm older, Calvin Henry. I don't know. And I think that's how you say it. Cavill. Henry Cavill. Yeah, that guy.
Okay.
He's a good Superman. So he got me back into it. I'm a fan of all superheroes, but just growing up, just kind of I guess reading comics and watching the cartoons, they give you, I think, an unhealthy view of what a male should look like. but I don't care. It's like I want my superheroes the dudes to be buff and strong and believable, and yeah, he does a good job of that. So I would say Superman now.
Okay.
But
I was thinking
I like them all.
with your sunglasses, with the way the nose is on him, I was like, oh, maybe he's a Batman fan.
I like Batman too. Batman's good too. Absolutely.
All right. This next question, they don't have to be intertwined. So favorite gun and caliber, but it could be, your favorite gun could be a rifle or it could be a pistol, but your favorite caliber is a rifle round. So it's whatever you want it to be.
My favorite gun is my SOCOM 16, Springfield SOCOM. That thing
Okay.
is it's 308, and that thing is just fun to shoot, and it just makes a big boom, but it's very controllable, and it shoots fast. It's all stock, but I can still shoot, I think, 12 splits with it with a 308. So it's just a good time. Caliber
Okay.
wise, I think I think 45 is my favorite, just because I love shooting 1911s. I love the 45 feel, and it just got that I don't know that America,
Yeah, exactly.
It's 45, the Lord's caliber. I think.
There you go. Amen to that. I like it. Now, the fifth question, I usually ask a personal question. So I'm going to ask you one. Well, I mean, personal. I mean, it's more geared toward the individual guest. It's not a generic question that we would ask everybody. But after looking around at your stuff, this one's probably going to go on for about 15 minutes or so, because you have a gray gun P320 Lockwood.
Yes.
So, what exactly is a gray gun P320 Lockwood?
So
I
this
have
one
a lot more
obviously,
questions, so you can give a
yeah,
generic answer
yeah.
initially.
So basically, as we know, Bruce Gray kind of helped create the 320 essentially, and the SU and all that with Sig. I don't know how well known that is, but so he works with Sig very close. Well, essentially it's a 4.7, so like the standard 320, the original one, not a 5-inch, the 4.7-inch upper. The biggest thing would be the bull barrel, 9mm barrel that is hand fitted to the slide, or slide vice versa. The slide's hand fitteds to the barrel. But so it's got a very tight lock on, as well as obviously the custom serrations and then the specific weight we try to achieve. So essentially what you're getting is a semi-custom striker fire.
Okay. Now, how long have you been shooting gray gun pistols?
About, say, almost 3 years now. I wish I could remember the first conversation. I know we've been working on the Lockwood for 2 years. Actually, I think I've got, I've got obviously the Lockwoods here, but back here, not so handy, but let me grab it out. I've got the kind of the originals. Here, I'll just grab the slide. So what we came up with originally, which is looks like your standard 320, and essentially what he did is he just cut it out for a bull barrel 9 and fitted the slide to the barrel. And it's pretty simple. I mean, we just cut it for an optic, and we tried a 5-inch. We tried, I think, a 4.3 inch. So we did a lot of different development of it, but this is kind of what we came up with originally. And the weight was, I think just the slide was 99 ounces. We wrote it on there under where we mount the optic just to see what different weights would feel like and what I was going for. So I was super selfish when I developed it. I developed it for specifically what I wanted to feel, what I wanted to see, which is probably a little snappy. I like a 124 grain, like a 130 grain at most bullet, and I like to run it at 134 to 136 power factor.
Okay.
And the reason for that, I don't like the 147s just for the fact that it's a slower cycle rate, and it almost, what I was seeing, and pretty much didn't matter which way, is when the slide would return, it would like dip down a little bit. So it would just cause that slow return. It would dip down. So I'd see it in my optics mainly. Optics are a great training tool, regardless whether, if you're just dry firing or not. They're just such a good training tool because you get to see exactly what it's doing.
What it's doing.
You get that feedback, and you can't quite get that to iron sights, I think, as well. It's going to be harder to see, but the dot is perfect. It's like a perfect training tool. But that's what I was seeing. So knowing that I'd like to shoot the 124s, a higher power factor, the return rate was faster, and I didn't get that dip down. So basically, it would go back, and I don't mind muzzle flip. I don't really care if it's flipping as long as it's moving straight up and down, because it's returning right back to where it came from. That's the most important thing, so I can take that shot faster. So with a faster cycle rate, we basically determined, or through trial and error, I determined that I got the best performance out of a 4.7 full barrel, no tungsten guide rod. I took that out. I tried that with 124s at 134 to 136 power factor, fast cycle rate, and no dip. It just comes back and it's ready to fire again before I'm ever ready. And so that was important to me, to be able to basically to get better. The gun was beyond my capability, but it was ready to go before I was. That's what I wanted. And
okay.
It made me better doing that.
Right. Now, my next question in this is, how did that conversation, I mean, how do you approach someone who worked with Sig to create this and go, hey, what do you think about doing this? How does that get started?
Well, actually, Bruce he's as many years and as much experience and know-how that he has, he's still a student. Like, he's still always looking to learn something. And so I felt humbled because he came to me to ask me. But I thought, I'm like, you've got, countless shooters that are established in this sport and others that he could go to. And I was fortunate that I was able to kind of like, talk to him and meet him and all that, kind of get a relationship. And we just clicked, obviously. And then, within a year down the road, he's just like, well, what would you want in Karyoptics? I think I was just the only one shooting Karyoptics before Mason kind of jumped to Karyoptics. I think he may have shot it a little bit, but I don't think his goal was production and limited, and still is, but
right.
But yeah, so I don't, that's a good question. You have to ask Bruce. I don't know how that actually, why he cared what I thought, but I certainly was willing to help in the way that I could, and it just kind of compounded, and he was just like, well, I'm going to send you something. What do you want? What would you like to see? And I was running an X5 at the time, just a stock X5, and I think I just switched to the tungsten, the TXG lower. So I was just playing around with things, and I shot an M&P before. The M&P, shoot, what is it? It's their 5-inch version. It was I sat at the pro slide. Anyways, there was some benefits in that there was a couple things that were better than the Sig that I thought, but the Sig overall was better than the M&P in my opinion, performance-wise. So there's just some things I was looking for, and I think that's basically, ultimately, that's what we came to. So yeah, it's a tough one to answer because it just kind of, it's something that just happened, and I think it's because he's a student still. He's always looking, he values everybody's opinion, and I think he knows that you can kind of learn something from everybody.
Now he's on the East Coast, you're on the West Coast. So how did you guys even meet each other?
So he's on the West Coast now. So he closed his shop on the East Coast, and he moved back to Reedsport. Yeah, so he's back in Reedsport, Oregon. And how we met, actually, it was actually a while before we met in person, at least a year. But it was actually through Jason Wood for Targets USA.
Oh, the devil. Yes.
so he's actually, and I'm trying to remember how I even got introduced to Jason, to be honest. I think it was at an area match, Area 2 in Arizona, possibly. Yeah, I think that's what it was. We went out to dinner with a group of us, and I met him there. But my memory is garbage, so I'm very sorry.
That's okay. For everybody listening.
Yeah.
So for everybody listening, I call Jason the devil because Isaac posted a video of him shooting that freaking monkey swinger thing and challenged the other people who have one to do the same drill. And that's when I said, I replied that Jason is the devil because that swinger is evil.
Yeah, it does have a pattern. So I didn't want to like do a bunch of runs and just post a perfect run. I did run it like two to three times prior to the one I posted for the challenge. And what's funny is I didn't even run it. That was the first take I did where my focus was just the swinger. So Jason proposed to me, he wanted to do that challenge, which is essentially you shoot an activator. It's just an activator and the holy monkey. And so you activate, and then you get 4 passes. It's going to pass more than that, but the first 4 passes, 2 shots per pass only, and then see what you get. So essentially you get 8 shots total on target. And so that was my first one. I had other stuff set up because I was training with it, kind of training some transitions and kind of just eyesight with the tracking along with transition and timing. Working on a couple different things. And then I was just like, all right, I'm going to do this challenge. And so I just did the activator and the holy monkey for it. And that was actually my best run, even though I did have a mic on it. I completely whiffed one of the shots, but I had seven shots on target, and 7 were alphas, and then 1 mic. So I don't care. That was still, I know that was a decent run. I'm sure it can definitely be done. Obviously, you want to post all alphas,
right? Of course.
He said, I guess JJ Racaza has one, Max Leograndis has one, and Jay Beal has one, and there's others too. I think he was going to send one or had sent one to Mike Seeklander. He's trying to get them to everybody, just, you know, to kind of get some exposure. But as well, if nothing else, just get it into clubs for fun. It's fun. It's very consistent. You can adjust the weight and have it do some different things.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you can have it. He said they adjusted it for one where they dug basically, or they set it up higher, I think, and they had to kind of dig out the ground a little bit because he said it can go into the ground and back up. If you want it to get real wild.
Wow.
Yeah. But what's cool about it is it runs, I think it's like a 4 or 5 passes, and it's going to be a pattern of the same 5. And then obviously, as it slows down, it'll be a smaller version of those 5 presentations. So I don't know if you saw Keita Bussey's post, but she said she posted something recently that the World Shoot range has one of those. Oh, that'll be
yeah. Oh, exactly. I was like, uh-oh.
So these top guys going to Worlds better get one then. Better check it out.
Yeah, for sure. Better get some practice on it.
The big thing about it, though, is what it's good for, if nothing else, is, you know, because if they set it up differently, who knows how they're going to set it. If you can pattern it, great, but it really helps you. It's going to be good for kind of like any sort of training to track your sights on a moving target, which we do kind of.
For those of you who he just disappeared off the screen, so he obviously lost connection to the internet, but he'll be back. So we'll keep this thing running. So yeah, it'll be interesting for the guys going to the World Shoot who are actually still going to do it. It'll be interesting if they can get some actual practice on one of those to see if they can figure it out, if nothing else, just to work on their focus on tracking on that swinger, because that one's completely different than what we're typically used to. Welcome back.
Sorry, I had to change phones, so the phone I got from my brother, it overheated. I told you it's hot.
Oh, you know, that's kind of odd because your audio would break up. So I bet that's why.
Yeah, so I'm back on my phone, but I can hear you. I just can't use the headphones.
Okay, I'll make sure I speak up. They're gonna wonder, why is Dave yelling the whole episode?
I'll just sit real awkwardly close to the camera.
Oh goodness.
Yeah, I told you.
Right.
I think it's about. I got the fan on me, so I'm not dripping sweat, but it's about 95 in here. I think it's 100 outside.
Good Lord, where in California are you?
I'm in Redding, California, north of Sacramento, about 2.5 hours.
Okay. Wow. And that far north, it's still that hot, huh?
Yeah, I know at least every couple of years we're the hottest place on earth for a day or two at times. Yeah, I think it was 3 years back, 3 or 4 years back, we had a record here that we broke, which was over 110 degrees. It was 70 something days consecutively. I can't remember the exact how many days, but it was over 70 days straight, over 110 degrees every day.
Are you sure you don't live in Death Valley?
Yeah, no.
I mean, that's like Death Valley hot.
Yeah. It's hot summers here, so I'm definitely trading the heat. That's for sure. Damn. That's why I got my water. I'm constantly drinking water.
Well, it's funny because I have a question about that later, so that's good. We'll be talking about that. All right. So getting back to the gray guns real quick. Mm-hmm. I have several questions, but the first one I want to ask is, you mentioned that you don't use a tungsten guide rod. In your video, you showed in your competition equipment video, you said you use a fatty guide rod. Now, I don't shoot a Sig, I shoot a Canic. So what is a fatty guide rod?
So basically it's a gray gun. It's the gray gun guide rod, and I'll take it out. It's real similar to a stock one. I think just the only difference is, sorry, my guns are so dirty. I
That's okay.
I only clean them after a couple thousand rounds and right before a major, basically. So
Okay.
so it's probably your standard. The difference is probably back here. I think the stock ones are a little bit fatter, or just maybe have a different contour. It's just a Gray Guns brand guide rod.
Okay.
It's what they offer. So I don't think it's going to change much anything. It's not added weight, certainly. It's just steel.
Okay.
But I tried the tungsten in the past. I liked it for the time I was shooting it. But you kind of, as you grow and develop your skills, they change over time. So you try things that kind of work, and then as you kind of develop other skills or a new skill set, you kind of realize where that might be limiting you or whatever. And I think just people change to I think it's normal for people to change over time, and kind of your ability changes, how you maybe hold the gun changes. I always kind of look at Tiger Woods was always working, even in his prime, he was always working on changing his swing or doing something. And I think that has to do with it's just human nature. If we're not trying to improve, you can never stay the same. You can't just coast. I don't believe in that. You're either getting better or you're getting worse, and that applies to pretty much everything. So I think it's part of that too. So I used to be where I had to have like the lightest trigger and this and that, and I think everybody that starts shooting competition might go through that phase. I certainly did, where I had to have this perfect trigger, this and that. And then I realized it took me a while, but I finally realized that it was all about developing my fundamentals and just the constant pursuit of perfecting it. And I'll never get there. Nobody truly does, but it's that pursuit that keeps us pushing. And then the competition, it's a great way to see where you stand, and that helps motivate me as well as probably everybody else to try to be even better.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Now, so with the new slide, with the Lockwood slide, as you said, they made it larger and added a bull barrel. So that's obviously some added weight, but I don't know if you're taking away from the slide, did it change the weight, or did it just the balance of it?
The balance is what it is. Basically, that's what we were going for. So,
okay.
So I've got a nice dirty one here, but essentially, so the difference between the black one that I had here, right here, kind of the pre-Lockwood prototypes that I was using. I think I had one that was 9.7 and this one's 9.9. But this one, I want to say we went down to like 9.6 on this one. So it's a little bit lighter. And that's probably just those cuts right there, essentially. Those little windows. But yeah, the balance, you coined it exactly. The balance in this thing for the bullets I shoot at the power factor I shoot it, and I spring it with a kind of a heavier spring. A lot of people like to use 12s. I've even heard as low as 11s. I use a 14. I use a 14-pound spring. 15 is a little bit much. I found that 14, and then there's kind of just like with all springs, there's a shelf life on them, and they wear out. But kind of a 14-pound springs with about 2,000 rounds on it is right in that golden zone. I've learned, and it gives me that balance to where I have a very fast return, but it doesn't. It's reliable with the higher power factor, or I run it a little bit higher, I think, than most. But it comes right back to where the trigger broke, basically where the shot breaks. It's back and ready to go before I ever am. So I don't think I'm going to ever get to a point where I'm outrunning it.
So are you hand loading then?
So I'm fortunate that I have a buddy, Mike Schroeder. He's a gunsmith, and I kind of forged all these relationships like simultaneously. Once I got into shooting, I get a hobby or whatever, I get all in, and I just go everywhere and made a lot of friendships. And the one thing I will say about shooting is so many good people, and they're the people. I mean, it's like I've done a lot of sports, and there's good people everywhere, but the shooting community is just kind of like they'll give you the shirt off their back. Like if you show up to a match and you just want to shoot it, somebody there is going to give you their gun, their belt, their ammo, and you're going to shoot. If all you got to do is say, I'd like to try this, and somebody's going to be like, here you go.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I have a personal story about that because where Area 8 was held the last 2 years, I went up there for just a local match, and my son and I got up there. We were going to shoot, and we realized we brought our guns, but we left our belts with our mag pouches and everything 2 hours away at home. So the people that owned the range loaned us belts, mag pouches, guns, magazines. We had ammo. So they loaned us everything else we needed. Now it took me, it was like I want to say it was an 8-stage local match. And it took me 7 stages to, figure out that Glock. But I finally, that 8th stage was good.
right. Right. And that's exactly. So I was, yeah. And that's kind of each avenue I took, whether it was bullets or guns or magazines or like with Springer Precision, just everybody I met and talked to, they just good people, and they're just willing to. We're all excited about the sport because it's just so fun and it's shooting. So we all love shooting. We all have common ground, and yeah. So I was fortunate. So back to my loader, or he's my loader. He's a gunsmith, but he also loads to ammunition, and he's done that for about 30 years. So he loads all my ammo. I pulled the handle on for, it's an embarrassing low amount. I've loaded less than 10,000 rounds. I know that, but so he's the guy I defer to for any technical questions on that. And it's like everybody kind of they load them for themselves usually, right? Well, I don't have a loading machine. I go over there when I do load, but I still have to ask, hey, what am I loading these at?
Well, that's because your garage would overheat the loading equipment.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably.
Well, the reason I ask is it's a little out of order, but I mean the reason I was asking is that the Lockwood slide with a 14-pound spring, how would that work just as well with factory 124s that are maybe running 132?
It's going to work as well. I just what you're going to see is going to be so minimal. Kind of like what I tell people when they're running an X5 like a Legion, and they have it so it's a 5-inch versus the 4.7. Like, what's the benefit? So besides the balance, the other huge thing I notice, and I only notice it because of how much I shoot, or at times sometimes I go through peaks and valleys of components. When I'm just out of ammo. So, just super conservative on my practices. But when I'm shooting a lot, it's more noticeable, just kind of like anything else. When you're doing it more, you notice the little things. And so with the 4.7 also versus the 5-inch, I noticed with a dot, you can do this. You'll kind of nose it over. Let me put the slide back on. But so when you're shooting an array, you'll kind of, with iron sights, you have to stay very rigid as you move it with your eyes. Your eyes lead, of course, on your transitions, and you bring it to your eyes, but your frame has to be very rigid. With optics, especially a huge optic, like the Max or the XL, is you have a big field of view. So what I noticed in an array around a corner or something, I would just nose the front of the gun over to the next target, not necessarily move the whole gun. Well, in doing that with a 4.7 versus a 5, I really noticed how quick I could get through an array with a big optic without moving the gun. It just would move just a little bit quicker, and it's noticeable when you're shooting a lot. So I tell people, you're probably not going to notice it unless you're shooting a lot of rounds. So I'm not I mean, I don't try to use that as a selling factor. It's just something that's going to be very negligible unless you're shooting all the time. But it is there, so it will be slightly faster. Even more so when we tried the 4.3-inch, which is much shorter. You know, it's very noticeably shorter. I tested that, but with that, it was a little more difficult to control, and it was almost too fast. So any difficult target, it was hard. It's harder to control. So it's harder to keep your sights on that target. Say if it's at 30 yards, if it's a 20 to 30 yard popper, it was definitely harder to hit because it didn't settle quite like a 4.7. And the 5 will settle even. So basically, the further out you go, that's where, because you don't need that length like you do with irons on an optic, but there's something to be said for how the gun settles when it's a little bit, when you add inches on the end of it. But I found that the 4.7 was kind of like that golden length.
You found the sweet spot. Yeah,
exactly. So where it was fast in the rays that are closer, but still settled very well on difficult targets, you know. So it's a kind of a minute selling point, I guess. So it's not really going to benefit, I would say, the average shooter, but obviously the more you shoot, it's something that you may notice. But overall, what you're going to notice is it's a tight fit because it's a semi-custom because it's hand fitted, and the balance of it versus your stock Legion or any other one out there, really, because it's weight taken off specifically. We even took weight off under this, which I don't have this off, but if I took this off, you kind of see some of that weight cut out there as well. So balance is the key word. That's kind of the word I always use is that it's a balanced slide. And I don't know, obviously, even without it being named after me, which I feel like I definitely haven't earned it yet. You know, I'm very humbled that they did that, but it's a good pistol. I'd shoot it regardless whose name on it.
Okay. Well, yeah, it even has your logo on it.
Yeah.
And I just saw. Sorry, I'm not trying to ignore you. I just saw a picture of the cut underneath the optic, and I don't know why I can't find it now.
Yep.
I think it was on the Gray Guns Instagram.
Yeah, probably they do that on the Modern Classic as well.
Okay.
Yep.
But I'm not finding it. So yeah, it was pretty interesting. It almost looked like they just grooved it out.
Yeah. So
very interesting.
With those cuts, so I will say this too. So it's a difficult gun slide for them to build, which is why it's unfortunate, but it's quality. So it takes time. With the serrations we went with, that we designed, I designed those with Keith. Actually, there's a lot of guys, Keith, Jordan, as well as Bruce, obviously, but it was a big project, big collaboration. But with the design of it, those it really, I think we came up with something special. But it takes time, so they're really they're trying to produce them. They're having difficulty, just like the whole industry, in getting components to put these together. And they're just doing the best they can. So I think they have 100 coming soon. Of course, it's always coming soon, but I think they're getting close. So it's going to be just released on their website. They tried to do an email list, like a first come, first serve, and then they kind of they're going away from that because that's a tough one for them to fill. So now they're just going to do first come, first serve. So they're going to be available.
Okay. Now, the other thing you mentioned was that you're going away from the bull barrel to a match grade barrel. So I assume is it still going to be what's the difference?
So that is still, it's going to be Gray Guns. It's going to be, because the components that are difficult to get, they've had they're just looking for different options, and they wanted, originally we wanted, oh shoot, what was the maker of that barrel? Now I'm blanking, but
It's that memory thing again.
I know I've said it before. One of the better quality barrels, but they haven't been able to get anything from them. Just like all components. So they're in talks with, I think, a couple different barrel companies for match grade, basically trying to commission barrels specifically made for the Lockwood, already cut to 4.7 and ready to go. And that'll actually quicken the process for production. So it's
same dimensions and everything, so it'll just fit in the slot. Okay.
Yep. So they'll be able to have, so the fitting process will be much quicker, because that's a big part of it, not just the the cutting of the serrations and obviously the laser engraving of the logos or anything like that. That takes time too, but it's the fitting, the slide to the barrel that's really, it's just an added
time consuming.
Yeah, and you got it each one. So if they can get the barrels to their specifics for already set up, then it'll quicken that up a little bit.
Okay, so it shouldn't upset the harmonics or the balance then.
No.
Okay.
Every gun's going to be a little. So even between the two finished ones that I have, I'm going to be getting a couple more, hopefully before Nats, and we'll see if I run them in Nats. If they're close enough to what these are, then I might. But obviously, you're always leery to run something brand new.
Yeah, that's pretty ballsy.
Right. And you know what? I don't agree, but I've done it. I swear, it's like every year. I got these right before Nationals last year, I think a month before, and I did it, and they ran fine. I don't know. I've done it a bunch. I don't recommend it. It hasn't hurt me, I don't think, but there's always a slight difference from what you're used to. So even between the two I have of what I've got now, there's slight differences. So yeah, I can't say it's going to be exactly the same, but no, I don't think any two guns are exactly the same. Springs,
yeah,
I mean, you can't get them the exact same, so they're going to spring different. They're going to just react different. The trigger is going to be a little different, all the way down to the striker springs. I have tons of strikers that I take with me. I don't know. I always carry around extra strikers, but every striker has a different feel, and that changes how your trigger feels. So I've got one, and I don't know what the heck makes it so special, but it has the cleanest break. It's amazing. And so I take that spring, parts wear out, and that spring is just, I don't know why it works so well, but it's almost one of those things like, how do I get another one of those? I don't know. It's the same as all the others. Essentially, It doesn't look any different, but it feels different. It's noticeable.
Wow. Interesting. Now I noticed too that you put silicone carbide on your grip. Do you do that to all of them?
Yeah, I do for my competition ones. Yeah, so I just do it myself. Basically, finger paint it on there, tape off what you don't want, finger paint it on there, and then do the silicone carbide, and I just pack it on there, and it stays on there for years. Doesn't wear off. It's been a trial and error over the years, but I've been doing it for a while.
What grit are you using?
That's a good question. I don't know. I get it from Gray Guns. I can't.
Son of a gun.
Yeah, I get it. They send me the pack. They do theirs. They do it there too. I think my method is a little different. I just learned the way I like it. But yeah, my method is basically, once I get that on there, once I paint it on there, I don't go too thick, or it will run. If you get too much glue on there.
Right.
But basically, I pour it on like normal, like everybody would, but I create a pile, and I basically roll the grip into that pile so it really sets it in there. And I take it and I'll just mush it in there as best I can, so it'll have kind of layers, so it'll have years before it ever wears off.
Now, you've got a lot of videos. Have you ever considered making a video of that?
Yeah, actually, somebody asked me recently on that. I did an equipment video just a week back or 2 weeks back, and that's what somebody was asking for. And I thought about it. It just, to me, that's kind of like, I hate doing it. I don't mind videoing, but I hate that part of it because it's just work, it's labor. But yeah, because I do some things for sure that modify it. Like, I don't know if I've got a stock one. I don't think everything I've got is already modified, but I take off that whole back of the beaver tail and really shave it down. You can see that. I wish I had a stock X5 to compare it. Oh, you know what? I might. But yeah, so I take off this whole shelf that's usually comes straight back to the beaver tail, and it's usually about that long. Right. I mean, I think about there now. I say this, but whoever's watching, don't think that there's a void in here. And basically, where I'm at the maximum you can take off because there's a void in here for the back where the FCU slides in. There's a void behind it, and if you go too far, you're going to get in there. So this is as much as you can possibly do. And that's,
now, did you find that void accidentally?
I have not. So another
okay.
So my buddy Mike, who loads my ammo, he, like I said, he's a gunsmith. So he's done a few. He does the bulk of the work. I take credit, right? This is how it goes. I go, hey, I just want this shelf off, and I want this. Can you make it do this? And he just does it. And then I go, yeah. So and then when I talk to somebody else, so this is what I did. Take credit for it. No, he does.
There you go.
He does the bulk of it. I think I've done some of the, basically put in the line, and then taking some sanding to the back. I do little things, but he does the bulk of the work. He's actually got one right now that I already did the grip on, but he's doing this to it for me as well.
Okay.
I got a couple coming, so I can't take credit for it. I try, but yes, there's a void back there, and yes, I think he's found one of them.
Okay.
Yeah,
that doesn't sound like it's something that you would know about unless you're like, oh, look, there's a hole in the back.
yeah, there is. Yep.
Okay. I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier because it was in your video as well when you were talking about it. And I just for some clarification, you talked about the slide and how it's basically tuned to, and the barrel length, all of that, everything's tuned to where, like you said earlier, the 4.3 would dip. In one of your videos, you mentioned something about, I've got it. Was it a video? Anyway, I've got it verbatim. It said, what I've seen with the Lockwood is when the slide returns, it does not have bounce, meaning it returns to where the shot broke and stops. This allows for faster everything. I've realized that muzzle flip is so much less important than a balanced, consistent return. Mm-hmm. So two things. One, when you say bounce, do you mean the front of the gun dipping down?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And what have you learned about muzzle flip versus bounce?
So it's kind of a compound question, but basically it's going to be combined with what you're shooting, of course, whether that's a Lockwood, regular 320 or 1911 or anything out there. That's going to dictate some of that too. The other part of that is, of course, your hands, what you're doing with your grip. So the bounce so the way I think of it, and it's, again, I always kind of say, my videos are kind of, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm learning, this is what's working for me, this is what's not. And for me, I try to think of my left hand, because it's my support hand, as the tool that I use to, it doesn't stop muzzle flip. It definitely mitigates it a lot. But what's important about my support hand is that it makes the gun return right back to where it was. And the way I do that with, obviously, the balance of the gun can make that a lot easier. Like I mentioned earlier with the 147s, I noticed that slower slide return, for whatever reason, I can't understand why it makes sense, or why it doesn't really make sense. Like if you think of physics, but that slower slide return, it tends to make that movement down in the after the slide returns. I don't understand, but I know the stronger spring you think would want to slam it forward and dip more, and it doesn't do that in my experience. I can't explain it, but that stronger spring tends to slam forward but stop quicker versus the slower return. So I don't know that part and exactly why it does that for me, but I do know that my grip does have something to do with it. And what I think about is I'm eliminating the movement in my wrist on my support hand. So I'm not like trying to really kink it down, but I basically take it down to a point where there's no more movement for it to go down further. So when I meet the gun, instead of having it like this, there's still movement in that weak hand wrist. So it can go bang, it's going to lift, and it's going to come back, and now it can go below because there's still movement in that wrist. Well, if I eliminate that movement, then put it on the gun, it can go up, but now there's no movement down. There's no movement to go down in that wrist. So that's kind of how I teach the grip. So there's different abilities out there. Everybody's wrists, their joints are different. So that's just the way I think of it. It kind of is a more broad way. Eliminate the movement in your wrist by kind of pointing it down. I've been told, put it at a 45 degree. Well, really, all you're trying to do is eliminate the movement for the ability for the gun to move down past a certain point. And if that certain point is already there and that's pointing at the target, when it goes up, that's fine. But returning back consistently and not being able to go below that is more important, is a complicated way of what I mean.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that clarifies it. That's good. All right. Now backing way up, when did you first shoot a gun?
Oh, first shoot a gun? Probably 6 or 7, I think. I think it was my dad's 22. I don't remember my exact age, but probably right around there, 6, 7, 8. We were on a houseboat trip on Lake Shasta, and we were just in a ravine or something up kind of between two hills where a creek came into the lake, and we just were shooting across. But no, it was my dad's old 22.
Okay. So you've lived in California your whole life then?
Most of it. I was born and raised in Redding, California, where I live now. And then I moved away after high school, went to Nevada, and spent about 8 or 9 years in Nevada for the job, and then started a family and moved back to Redding, California, where we're at now. I married my high school sweetheart, and once we started having kids, we had to get back to where both our families were. So
okay. And congratulations, you just had a recent anniversary, yes?
Yep.
Okay.
17 years.
Yeah.
17 years. We've been together, like I said, since high school, so we're probably closer to 20 that we've been kind of dating. But yeah, 17 years married.
Good for you. I'm on number 2, so stay on number 1 if you can. And there's nothing wrong. There you go. Yeah, it's just a hassle. So I was going to ask you how you found USPSA, but you were saying that you had some downtime doing injury and YouTube, and that's how you found it. Now, what was your first competition match, a USPSA match?
Yeah, it was. So it's a local gun club here. The Shasta Shooters put it on, and they put on a good one too. Every month, it's second weekend of the month. I went out. I think I'd been shooting Tuesday Night Steel. That's during the summer that they didn't do it this year because it's all volunteers to set it up, and it's difficult when it's 110, 115 out to go set all that stuff up without having help. So I was shooting that pretty regularly, weekly, and then those guys you know, kind of the locals took me under their wing and said, hey, you got to come out and shoot USPSA. I think I was running a T-Rex Arms drop leg holster. They didn't care. 511 like soft pouch that held like 5 mags, you know, all strict perpendicular
Right.
with a Velcro flap over it. But yeah, those guys got me out there, and I can't remember what. I know it was in 2017. I don't remember. I think it was towards the end of the year. But yeah, shot my first one, and very. I think it was the first stage, first match, DQ'd.
Oh
Yeah,
no.
yeah. And it was a 180 thing. It was a target. So from day one, I was gaming because I saw a target that I could see from this front position that had walls coming into it, and you shoot what you're supposed to shoot. Well, if you lean out far enough, you could see another target. And they brief you on the 180 and all the safety rules. And so, but I just never enter my head because I didn't quite have that frame of mind yet. I just thought, oh, I could see that target from here. So I lean out and I take the target, and then I hear stop. And that's all it was. So they felt bad, of course. They're just like, broke the 180. I'm like, what? So, but I stuck around. I think I stayed the rest of the match just to watch it, and then obviously I came back to it.
So what division did you shoot that match? That one stage?
You know what? I don't even know. I think they just put me in open because I think whatever I just wanted to run what I was running, which was an M&P at that time. And I think I had a magwell on it, but a Karyoptic slide. And yeah, so it's just it was just something I put together that I wanted it to be, but it wasn't. So I think I was running open just because that's, it didn't really matter at that point. It's locals just wanting to get me out there, and they're just, but then once I started to like, okay, I think I'm going to shoot this. I started shooting limited, is the category. That's kind of where the heat was at the time, limited in production, but I never cared for just 10 round mags or doing having to reload the whole time. Well, probably because I wasn't good at it. So I didn't want to have to reload. Just like, man, that takes forever. I just got to shoot limited. So I got an Akai Customs pistol from one of the locals. Yeah, saved up some money and got an Akai. He gave me a good deal on it with the mags and everything. And so I started shooting limited for about a year before I switched to Karyoptics. So the bug never left me with it. I've always loved optics. Once I mean, like I said, it was in 2017 or something. I just put one on an M&P, and I just instantly loved it. Just probably because it just made it easier. It made it just fun. And then went back to it.
Nobody really had. I don't think anybody had any really large optics back then. 2017, 2018 at that time.
I ran a Vortex Venom.
Okay.
Yeah, I just ran the Venom on the M&P. And you know what it was? I just built my M&P because I saw it in a magazine, and there was like a collaboration gun or something that I thought looked really cool. So it had a magwell, so I basically modeled it after that. And it had a Vortex Venom on it, so I thought that's the optic to have. Super, I don't know. It's like, you don't know what you don't know. So super impressionable, and just built it from what I saw in a magazine. And I mean, I liked it, but as far as our divisions in USPSA, that took me a while because it was a hobby. I enjoyed it, but I kind of I didn't want to adhere to all these restrictions. It was just like, it was just too much. I just wanted to shoot what I want to shoot, which I get it. Yeah, then you're just put in open or whatever division you can fit in. But that took some adjusting until I kind of figured out, okay, well, if I want to be competitive, where do I want to compete at? Kind of what fits me the most. And then I finally kind of gave in, and like I said, went limited for a little bit. And but my heart never left optics.
Okay. Now you mentioned also wanting to try, I think, the Sig Romeo XL.
Yep. I
Is
wanted to
there?
try that. It's I think I've got one coming with my new Lockwoods from Gray Guns. They have an extra one because I've only ran the Max, which is a great optic, and then so I just wanted to try I've never actually tried the XL, and I think it's just the field of view is just slightly bigger.
Okay, that's
Basically,
what I was going to ask.
yeah, from what I understand, it sits as tall, but I think it's just slightly wider. And the only reason why it interests me because I want to cheat a little bit more on kind of what I was talking about earlier is nosing it over on those arrays. You can just cheat a little bit more. It's definitely not good mechanics for irons because I've gone back to irons, and when I do transitions and stuff, it's like, oh, I lose that, my front sight it'll get off real quick, and then I've got to work it back, and it's like, oh my gosh. So I don't do enough cross training, but fortunately, my job, they transition to they run a P320 with Romeo 1 Pros, so I get to do the same thing at work as I do for competition. So I'm very fortunate, very fortunate.
Yeah, that's wow, that's pretty lucky.
Yeah, so there's not really a worry about having to go from irons to optics.
So not only are you gaming the competition in the stages, you're gaming your sights.
That's right.
You're just gaming it all.
Yeah, gaming it all. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I was going to ask you how you got into Karyoptics, but you answered it. So that was perfect. All right. So last year at Nationals, you finished just outside of the top 10.
Yep. I ended up
that was
13.
Right. But that was a stacked field. I mean, I've talked to people who were top 10 and then last year got bumped out of top 10 because of the other competitors that showed up.
Oh, man.
And this year is even crazier. I mean, Dazzy was second last year and he's not even on the super squad.
Well, I think his situation. So well, if everybody showed up, and obviously Christian is in now, so he's going to be automatic super squad. I was told when I got bumped to the super squad was Dazzy's going to shoot from his work or something. He has some other engagement. I think it's his work to where he has to shoot it in one day or something like that. So he has a prior engagement he has to take care of. And that's just hearsay until we see, but that's
right.
He should be obviously on there. I should not. And I'm sure a couple of us made it on because of that, because we were just outside. But I mean, I'm happy with it. I haven't got to shoot alongside, these guys I essentially learned how to shoot from watching YouTube.
Right.
Now I'm excited I get to shoot alongside them. But that's fine. I mean, I've gone to some of these. I haven't been to too many majors. So I've kind of grown looking up to these guys, even though I'm shooting in the same field, it's like, I don't know, it's kind of it's a learning process. So that's what they have on me is they have that experience and they've been there before and they've been the guys. And now the only difference is I plan on being the guy or one of them.
There you go. Yeah. And that wasn't a hit on you. That was just me trying to point out just how much heat is going to be at this match. I mean, Jay Beal's not on there and he could be, you know what I mean? Like there are people that are not on this. Anybody on the super squad could win it, but there are also people not on this. I feel like there should be a second, like you should have super squad A and super squad B. Anybody in those 20 could win the whole thing.
I agree with that. I think it would be beneficial. I don't know how they're going to video or, how they're going to do the broadcast, but I think it would be beneficial to have a second super squad and having some cameras on that too. Because I mean, the reality is there's extra pressure, I think, being on the super squad. Although, like I said, I haven't been on a legit super squad, I would say, not at nationals for certain. This is only technically my third nationals. I shot back in 2019 or 2020, no, 2019. And I DQ'd on the first day, a 180 thing. As I brought the gun up, running backwards, I brought it up to shoot, and they say I just broke it. But so I didn't. That was my first nationals experience, and then this year, or this last year, 2021. But yeah, I mean, I think we saw it with Mason Lane when he won his first limited division. I mean, there's like no footage of it because he came from behind. He wasn't on the super squad.
Yeah.
So
yeah, totally.
It's something I think that this sport would benefit. You know, I mean, for some, it's definitely a possibility.
I think it would be interesting to figure out who the top. I think. Hold on a second. I've got it up here somewhere. Where's it at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there's 13 on the super squad. So take your top 26, throw all their names in a hat. The first 13 are on A, the second 13 are on B. Make one start in the morning and one start in the afternoon. So they're flip-flopping the whole time, and that's a whole different level of pressure.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Yeah, it's tough. This sport is tough because obviously you have different times of shooting, and that weather can change. So it is what it is. There's not much you can do about that, but it's hard to get everybody to shoot the same match, or it can be. You know,
right.
You have, obviously, I think, and it's good. I think it's important that they kind of allow people to, based on their job or prior obligations, that they shoot it in a day. But I'll tell you, if you can shoot all in the same day, I feel like if you're conditioned, it's a benefit. If you're not conditioned, then it can be detrimental. But if you're conditioned to shoot a lot, you can go through the whole, shoot everything in a day, and you can kind of keep a good pace. You're not taping and pasting. You're not sitting for an hour between each time you shoot. So you're not you're staying fresh. You go shoot a stage, you can kind of ramp up, kind of like you do in a practice. And so you can ramp up doing shoot throughs. So I think it's a benefit to do a shoot through in most, at least for top guys. And that's not a dig on anybody or anything like that. Because as we mentioned Dazzy, I think we need that because, to be honest, most of us aren't professional shooters and making a living off of it. So we're gonna have work, we're gonna have family and stuff that we need to take care of. So that's just part of it. So I'm definitely happy that they allow that, or when they do allow it. But it is just one of those things. It's like it can be a pretty good benefit if you can do that, because you can keep a rhythm.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors involved there. Like I've shot at a major match, and I was part of the staff, and I was able to shoot through, but I find that you don't get the same amount of time to do your walkthrough. It's not as slow and relaxed. It's a little faster pace. It's a little more pressure to get going, to get your stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's a whole other game there. So I can see. And then Southern Alabama, early September, it's going to be warm and humid, and it's going to be. And I think, Dazzy's in Texas, and I don't think he's in the Houston area, so it's a little drier. It's not that humid, muggy, so it's going to be a little different.
Absolutely, and it's dry heat here too, so that's going to be definitely something for me to overcome there. But not the humidity, which is a big part of it.
And it's funny. My son and I were talking about this yesterday about dry heat versus wet heat. And I'm like, look, I was in Wichita Falls when it was 111. I've been in Vegas where it's been 108, 110. And I'm like, yeah, those are dry, but it's still hot. You still sweat. It's still hot. I said the difference is it could be 98 in Houston, where I lived for a couple of years, and it's 75% humidity, and it feels like 110, but you sweat a little bit more. It's just that's that wet, but it's still hot. It doesn't matter. It's hot. It's all hot.
That's why I kind of do all my conditioning and training, most of it in my garage. And I have a fan, but it's It's just a little cooler in here than out in the sun, but it definitely gets warm.
Yeah.
But hey,
Yeah,
Dave,
for sure.
I've got to take my daughter. She's doing volleyball tryouts at 6 my time.
Okay. Okay.
So I've got about probably five more minutes or so.
Okay. All right. So with that, I'm just going to finish up with nationals then real quick.
Sure.
So when I had Juanzik on, we were talking, and he said the first nationals, he was leading after day one. He didn't know what to do. It like blew his mind, and it led to some other things that happened that caused him to drop in the final rankings there.
Mhm.
So you being, let's say, day one, the end of the day, Isaac Lockwood is at the top of the leaderboard. How are you going to handle that type of pressure? And do you already have a plan? Like, this is what I'm going to do to keep myself where I need to be?
Well, I think it's so ideally you would not want to know. Because I
Okay.
yeah,
But
ideally
that's not going to happen.
that's not going to happen. Heck no, because everybody's going to text you. I
Yeah,
won't
exactly.
I won't look at it because it's just something. That's what it is. It's this. I kind of I view shooting as same way when I play golf. It's you in the course. So it's not you against anybody else. It's you in the course, and that's the same thing. It's you against the stage, and that's it. So ideally, that's the mindset I want to be able to have, and that's the difficult part. Just and last year, the first 2 days, I shot and I was trying to do good. So I was over aiming, over confirming, and it didn't make me shoot any better. So there's no sense in doing it. But it took me till day 3 the evening of day 2 after I've shot 2 days and figured out what am I doing? I'm not shooting any better to do that. Just shoot what you see, shoot your sights. If it's a difficult target, you feel your trigger. Just the basic fundamentals. That's all it is. You don't have to do anything extra. Just execute your stage plan and let your sights dictate your speed. The end. And so day 3, I did that. I shot with Henning Walgreen, and I was fortunate. I actually had fun the whole time. Definitely wasn't shooting to my potential the first 2 days, but the final day, I showed up. Kind of like, okay, I shot myself out of any opportunity to do really well. I wasn't horrible, but I definitely wasn't where my potential could have put me. And I was like, all right, today's going to be different. And he, did you know Henning Walgreen, Henning Group? Are
I
you familiar
don't.
with him? Okay, so he's from Norway, and so he has an
Oh.
accent. A great accent. I love it, like that Viking accent. And he's like, oh, today you're not going to suck, and I'm like, exactly. That's exactly right. Today I'm not going to suck. And sure enough, I still had, I think, a couple mics, I still had some blemishes, but it was just much fast. It wouldn't have been any worse, except my times were much faster. I still ended up being, I think, out of the 5 or 6 stages, my worst finish on that day was 7th overall.
Oh, wow.
So like a second, a couple thirds, a fourth, maybe a couple fifths, and a 7th. It was just like, that's how I shot the day, because I wasn't over aim. I was just shooting the way I know how to shoot. So that's the key, is if I can do that for 3 days. I mean, if you took how I did, and granted, those are different stages. They had a breakup of 3 very different styles of shooting.
Right.
How they made that up. 3 different, courses of fire, or how they had it segregated in their sections. So,
Right.
and it didn't help, or it helped for sure that my final day was on kind of the first section where it was more of the speed targeted type stages. So that played to my advantage, I think. So I was able to put together just pretty much all solid stages. And yeah, if you're shooting that way for all 3 days, you're going to win easily. If you don't get worse than 7th overall, holy smokes, at a national, yeah.
Yeah, you're very
but
consistent.
that's going to be, if they do that again, those different sections, I like it because it definitely exposes you to all the different styles, or at least 3 major different styles. And you're going to find somebody's weakness within those. So I very much liked it. Just wish I would have had the mindset going in like I did finishing. So that's the goal this year, is go in. I'm sure I'm going to be plenty nervous to start, just to, kind of feel out the group, feel out the,
Right.
get that pressure. It's fine. I expect it. But just go in knowing it's the same thing. It's all up here, so I've dealt with pressure
Right.
in other sports, which has helped me in this one. And obviously pressure from the job and, to perform on demand. And sometimes, it just kind of depends on the day. Sometimes it's better than others. Sometimes it just is what it is. Your body's just, you wake up that day and you just don't have your peak performance day. But being able to manage it is important, knowing that it's like, okay, I don't have to be my best, but I can still manage it in a way to where I'm still performing at a high level, and just knowing I just need to keep that at a high level and get through the day. So that's my plan, essentially, is not, my expectation. I keep it in my practice. Execution, the goal has been for me is to focus in matches is going to be execution, not about the results. So that's my goal, is just the execution, execute every target, every stage the way I know how. And even though there's that added pressure of whoever's watching, it doesn't matter. That's always there, or it's not, just because the fact that it shouldn't change it. And it shouldn't, but
Right.
ultimately it does a lot for a lot of people, including myself. It has before, but I've also had times where it hasn't, where I've had pressure like that and I've done well. So I've had both ends of it. And the way to get better is, the more times you're there, the better you get at handling it. So that's going to be my test for me, is getting better at, obviously this is, as far as this sport goes, this is going to be my biggest test of handling that pressure. But I've had similar pressures in other sports that I can pull from. So I'm looking forward to it. I love it. I love how stacked it is. I don't know. I'd rather lose to the best in the world than win to, because of a screw up, or because their gun went down, or anything like that. So I wanted
Right.
it. I wish every top guy in every division was shooting Karyoptics right now.
They almost are. Yeah.
Almost. I know
Yeah.
there's a couple names that I would like to see there, just because. And I said this before, this year. So whoever wins this year, I think they could argue that this could be the toughest, or the most. It might be the biggest Nats to win ever. I mean, and I'm not like a history buff on USPSA or anything like that, but I don't know, and I would like to hear from, like, the guys that have been doing it since the '80s, or what is the most stacked field they've ever seen at a nationals. This might be it. So this might be the hardest
Yeah.
nationals to win this year. So
Yeah. The most competitive for sure. Absolutely.
it might be. I mean, I would definitely like to hear of a different one that, that's something that would challenge it. So that'd be good. I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch. I think it's going to be razor thin, the differences in overall scores. It's going to be interesting.
And with that last little thing, you're the odds maker at Las Vegas. Who's your early favorite?
Man, you know what? I'm not going to choose myself. I'm the underdog. So excluding myself, it's hard not to pick Max. I know JJ got it last year, but I know Max is that lit a fire, which is good. I swear I
Right.
learned more from losing, and it's more of a motivator to lose than it ever is to win. So I don't know how his training's been going. I'm sure I'm guessing it lit a fire, and that he's going to be very difficult to beat. And I know Christian's there. and he can shoot anything good. So there's just so hard. There's so many good shooters, you know.
You're going to be able to witness it firsthand when it happens, whether it's you or anybody else.
And there's so many underdogs too, like, you know, kind of underdogs or you know what I mean. But it's hard. I say the odds are still with Max just because he's done it so many times, and now he's coming off of a loss, so now he should have a fire lit. He is highly competitive, so I can identify with that, and I know after I lose, I know I'm working twice as hard to fix it, and then once I get a win, then I might kind of like back off. Okay, I got it. But after a loss is when I work my hardest. Then you learn the most from it. So I say Max, and it's just, you know, and then, you know, Christian's going to be right there too. But hopefully they don't have to worry about it. Hopefully I put in the work I need to, and then they don't have to worry about it.
There you go. I like it.
Well, yep.
All right. Well, I won't keep you any longer. I know you got to get going. So I appreciate you coming on. It was a great conversation. I'll have to have you on again.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me know.
And I will see you at Nationals.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks for talking.
All right. Take care. Until next time.
Don't be a little bitch.
Yeah.